famous LIR.com, 927LIR.com, and YouTube. I am John Kalaboukas, the Bouk, with my friend Paul Zubulake, Zoobie. So we are back after our 2-month hiatus. And of course, we come back with perfect timing with more Jets drama.
Welcome back. Welcome back, John. Welcome back to the audience. So we'll have to, hopefully our audience will come back and heard we were taking hiatus. And really, if you really think about the cutoff of when we left, we had some funny coincidences, right? Obviously, our country is unraveled since that time as well. But that's a non-sports subject that we will not go there. And yes, the Jets, as always, John, no matter what scenario happens, when you do a podcast and you talk a lot of Jets football, the organization is always able and willing to provide us with something to talk about.
And what's amazing to me about the latest is, don't you think when you're making a trade that somehow you would have some type of agreement with someone? I mean, it's just amazing to me that we're even going through this. It's just amazing. Just amazing.
Well, the Hassan Reddick situation, we talked about it a little bit, right before we went on hiatus. And I had I was on the record as saying that, Hassan, they're not giving you a long-term deal. And I don't know how in the world that they cannot come to a 1-year agreement, give him more incentives, and guarantee his contract, get him into camp. I actually I don't think there's any question that he's going to play, because he has to play. He needs the year so he can become a free agent. He's not sitting out the season. But the problem is you're going to have a guy that may just go halfway, and that's exactly what this team doesn't need. And unfortunately, they, as always, with Captain Chaos, Woody Johnson in charge, and the inevitable Joe Douglas deliberations, where they just overthink things and they don't have a plan, right? So when they lost Bryce Huff, this was their plan B. They thought they were smart. And they figured, he'll come in and play, and he will, because he has to, like I said. But is this going to cause distractions? I mean, John, let's face it, the Jets are going to go as far as Aaron Rodgers and the offense takes them. They have depth in that position with Reddick, and some of these guys are just going to have to step up. Clemens and McDonald, obviously Johnson, they're going to have to step up, and that's what it is. It's all about.
And they've been trying. It's not like the Jets haven't been trying to negotiate with them. They've actually been trying to have him sign the contract. Right now, as of tonight, which is August 13th at 7:18 p.m., Reddick has $1.7 million of lost money already.
Yep.
It's amazing to me that even before you start the games, it's already close to $2 million. Just crazy. I mean, these guys are in La La Land. He's
John,
really in La La Land. $2 million just to let it go up in smoke like that.
But
on a non-guaranteed contract too.
No, he's in a situation where he knows he's going to recoup that money if they agree to a deal, and it's going to be a 1-year deal, and I think that's how it's going to play out. He's going to get a 1-year deal. They'll guarantee his salary for this year. I think they could probably work some incentives in there. They should have some cap room to deal with it. They could restructure a player to get him in. He's not getting a long-term deal. It was a bad decision for the franchise to let Bryce Huff go. Will it really cost them? Only time will tell. I think every Jet fan will be afraid to watch the Eagles play. And if he does have a big year, I mean, it's going to really look bad. So otherwise, John, if you listen to the fan base, the media, the Jets are going to the Super Bowl, so don't worry about it.
I actually reserved a new book about Aaron Rodgers, and they have. I'm waiting. I read some excerpts.
Right. Was it Ian O'Connor's book? That's obviously
That's
what you're talking
correct.
about.
That's
Okay.
correct. Yeah, Ian O'Connor's book. And it's funny, in the New York Post, you'd think that they would talk more football. No, they're talking about the relationship he has with his family and how Olivia Munn was in the middle of him going against his family. Nothing to do with football,
Right. Yeah.
everything to do with personals. I'm like, can we have some football stuff in this? At least in the excerpts, nothing. It's like, wow, this is crazy.
Well,
And they're saying, and they're saying how he got back together with his dad last year, and
that's good. It's a good sign. I have confidence in the guy. Now, is he just can he do it at his age? And last year he showed he was definitely pre-injury, looking a little old, and we'll see how he plays. And we're not going to see him until opening day, and that's just
right,
the new NFL. They refuse to play the starters. Certain teams. That's a mistake. In the Jets should get their first string offense. They don't need to play Sauce Gardner, Quinnen Williams, C.J. Mosley. They don't need to play those guys. Offensively, they should try to get this offensive line on the field for 2 series, and let's see what Rodgers can do. Let's get some rhythm. Don't go into the first game not taking a live snap. I'm sorry. It's a factor. And San Francisco on the road, I mean, that's a beehive situation where they could lay an egg of monumental proportion. Now, we may get lucky with Christian McCaffrey not being 100% for that game. That would be a huge factor. But the Jets are talking a lot. They're riding high. Like I said, the fan base is a little giddy. I'm a realist. I look at it from what I see on the field. I'll probably go in the same prediction range last year because it's the same kind of scenario. This should be a 10-win team with the roster they have. They really should. I'm really concerned about the receiver situation. If Mike Williams is not healthy week one, they go into San Francisco without a weapon besides Wilson, and that is going to hurt. Relying on the running backs, I don't think it's going to be one of those things going to be able to run for 250 yards. But again, now with Braylon Allen in Canton after one preseason game, and I do say he did look good, John.
yeah, he looked good. He looked good.
He did look good. He's powerful. He's got speed. He's turns. He just puts his foot in the ground and goes straight, right? No dancing, and this could be a devastating 1-2 punch with Breece Hall, who I think is just ripe for a breakout year. So you got to be excited. It's just really just how could you not be? We're excited every year, but this team should be good. Their schedule works against them, and you just don't want to see them get off on a terrible note. But I think that will be like one of the things to watch for, and we have many more weeks to talk about this, obviously. That will they lay an egg week one, and everybody gets so down on them, and that's when you buy the franchise or the team, I should say, and you basically saying, okay, everyone thinks they actually not gonna have a good season, and I think they'll surprise people. So that's my early thought. Expecting not a great week one, but hopefully they can turn it around quick. They cannot get off to a bad start, obviously. Nobody can.
Well, it's funny how you say everyone's optimistic. It's amazing how these newspapers and the media are reporting on the Jets. Oh, Aaron Rodgers completed 10 of 12 passes against the defense, and I said, "Come on, man! They're not in pads. They're not hitting him. You know, they just make such a big deal of a nothing." And oh, did you see the spiral he threw? That I feel like I'm listening to someone describing a 10-year-old that just a 10-year-old quarterback that threw his first spiral. I mean, it's amazing how they make such a big deal over nonsense.
Yeah, it's just the world we're living in, John. It's just the way the sport's covered. It's over covered, over analyzed. You're not going to know anything until they hit the field, and we'll find out. It's just people love this stuff. People have been going to practices. We all know it is literally meaningless. The preseason is completely meaningless. They have good players, right? They have a nucleus. Can they stay healthy in front of Rodgers? Can they make simple snaps in the shotgun? Joe Tippmann, who had some issues in practice, we'll see what happens in the game. One thing I'm looking for on defense this year is Jeff Albright open to the idea against certain teams, certain matchups, to have Sauce Gardner follow the top receiver on the other team. San Francisco might not be the best example of that because they have a few weapons. Now, Brandon Ayuk might be sitting out, so there might be one less weapon. So maybe Sauce Gardner and Deebo Samuel go one-on-one a little bit. So that's something I'm watching. Will they show flexibility? They have to turn the ball over on defense if they want to be considered a really good defense, because, again, who cares what your rankings are? It's very deceiving, especially when you're always behind. The other team just stops throwing when they're winning the game. So your defensive statistics are going to look better. So who cares if they're ranked 4th or 5th defensively? It's more than that. So let's see if they can back it up, and hopefully they could, get this Reddick thing done so he's actually happy, because he's got to be motivated, because he knows he could just go through a year, have an average year, and he could still get a good contract because he'll be an unrestricted free agent.
Right.
So we just hope that's not the case. So
and no flag,
yes.
When they come home, no flag carrying for Rodgers and running full speed. Just make sure you get on the field, and that's it. I don't want him tripping, falling, turning his ankle, having the flag trip him up. Just let someone else carry the flag this year.
Well, they'll be on the road. That's a good thing. So they'll be
No, when they open. I'm saying when they open at home.
Right. Well,
I don't
John,
want him doing any of that.
Let's put it this way. The results of week 1 are going to determine the attitude on opening day, which is week 2 against Tennessee. They're 1-0 after beating San Francisco, John. You think the fans are giddy now? That's when the danger. That's when I get really concerned. Right?
They're going to probably have those F1 fighters come over the field with Aaron twirling the American flag if they win game 1.
So we'll worry about week 2 after week 1. We'll get to the Giants in a second because they have their own issues. And actually, I definitely want to talk about a little off-season stuff with the Hard Knocks. I did a fantastic job. I don't know if you got to see it with the off-season, which I loved. Yeah. I found that so much more interesting than the preseason stuff. So we'll talk that in a minute. But one thing I kind of wanted to get to, which is like a general thing that I wanted to talk about, because we had talked about this before we went on hiatus, was the new kickoff rule, John, where we really couldn't understand it, I guess, until you saw it. So when I see it, and it's so funny because we're taping on Tuesday, and I've heard this take by a lot of people, but I had the take immediately when I knew that the rule was that there was only going to be the 30-yard line on the touchback. Right. So I'm just like, any weapon back there, they're going to kick it through the end zone every time because they only made it a 5-yard difference from last year. It makes no sense to kick it to the returner. Zero. And I think they just did a terrible job. They should have been aggressive and done it to the 40. I've heard 35. I think it should be the 40. And that would, first of all, create so much more scoring if that happened, and force them to kick it in play and make the return a great play again. I think they had a huge chance to do it. I don't get it. It's like they make this radical change and they leave this little loophole in there to appease the teams who are they're going to just bang it out of the end zone, John, especially in the beginning of the season. when the weather gets bad, maybe it's going to be a little more of a factor. But I don't know what you think about it. But I was disappointed by it. I really was. It wasn't that exciting of a play when the Jets played. I know later in the weekend there were more returns. There were a few good returns. So I just think teams are just going to kick it out. And what do you think?
I think that they really need to tweak it. I agree with you. I was thinking more 35-yard line
Yeah, that's
would be,
better.
35. But yeah, I'd like to see more action on the kickoff. I get tired of seeing those, everyone kicking it into the end zone. So I would say 35-yard line would be really punitive if they kicked it into the end. So
They have
40
to
is
make it.
40 is like, you almost guaranteeing that they're gonna get some type of points.
Well,
That's,
that's
that's
that's the idea. But my point is, because of that, you'll kick it to the returner and force
right,
returns. That's what
right,
I want
right.
to see. I want to see the returns. So that's why I'm making it punitive. We'll see how it plays out. I think that was, and also where they're lined up. I honestly thought it was going to be like on the other side of the 50, and it was going to be like a lot of mano mano, and then guys would break through, and there would be a lot of one-on-one opportunities. So I just didn't understand that they're so close, and
Yeah,
they've taken out the onside kick. And I think that what is this 4th down and 15 thing that I think they're doing, where what yard line do they do it from, right? So instead of doing an onside kick, you can go for it. I guess it's on your own 20, and then you start out 4th and 15, and if you don't get it, the other defending team gets the ball, right? I think that's how it works. So I still haven't even heard a good explanation of that part, because
the
taking
only
the
time
onside kick out of the game is not good.
I think the only way you're going to understand it is to actually see it and see it many times, because right now it's an experiment. That's the bottom line. It's an experiment.
Well, they should have experimented in the preseason and then make the decision the following year. I think, again, I said just push it back to the 30 and let them kick off from the 30. And then you're going to have some returns, because it's harder. It's 5 more yards. And when they had that, guys used to get the ball 5 yards deep and then take it out, because they knew the return team was further down. And
Yep,
so
yep.
they want to eliminate the collisions. It's a collision sport. I mean, come on. I mean, it's just anyway. I just disappointed by it. I think it should be better, and I don't want to sit through, that situation, and the confusion. It's going to be rough. And the other thing, funny, I don't know if you noticed, John, during any of the games, they have this thing now that they're not going to use during the season, the virtual spot of the ball on the first down. Like, or in other words, the virtual measurement. Did you hear about this?
No, this one I didn't hear
All
about.
right. So whatever game I was watching, it might have been the Hall of Fame game, because I don't even think it was the Jet game. They come up, the referee goes, I think it was the Jet game, actually. He's like, we're going to use the virtual replay to see if it's a first down. So instead of the chain gang coming on the field, even though they're still there, they have this laser where you could tell where the first down is, just like the yellow line, right? So I'm like, okay, John, it took like 3 minutes for them to line it up, right? To get the video. And then all of a sudden, John, it zeroes in. And you know how like they do the in and out in tennis or
Right, right,
volleyball, right?
right.
They zeroed in, and the ball is like halfway over the first down. And it's first down. And it's like, wait a second. You could do that with the blind eye of half of football, right? He
Wow.
spent 3 minutes,
So,
and
so,
I'm like, this is ridiculous.
so what's the purpose of having the guys with the chains on the side then?
They would
What's
still be there as
what?
a backup to show the players like where the first down was. I think they were still going to keep them. Now the thing is, this was just during the preseason, so during the regular season they are not doing this, but they have a lot of work to do on it. And it's not about where the ball is marked on the field; it's after they mark it, comparable to the first down. And I don't know if you remember that famous thing a couple of years ago where there was a measurement and the infamous Gene Steratore took out like a card and put it between the first down and the ball to see if the ball was touching. I don't know if you remember that.
I
So
remember
that's
that.
what they want to eliminate, like that. But that's like, okay, when it's like an eighth of an inch from the yard marker, okay. The ball was over it by a half of a football, and you waited there 3 minutes. It was hysterical. I'm like, oh, the NFL's got to work on this one.
But it's
Uh,
only preseason,
Only preseason.
not nothing during the regular season.
No, they're not going with that
Okay,
during the
okay,
regular season. So
okay.
the point is that they probably should have experimented with the onside kick rules a little bit the year before
Yeah,
they implemented it. Now they're going to get stuck with it, and like I said, we'll see. But I'll tell you, when the Jets, Greg Zuerlein, if Deebo Samuel's back there, I'm going to kick it to Deebo Samuel. No, I'm kicking it out of the end zone every time.
sure.
Anyway.
Wow.
So those are the
Well,
impressions of kind of the new rules that are out there.
what's impressed me this offseason is how much weight Dable has lost. Have you noticed how much weight he has lost?
Yeah, no, him and his wife, they both did it, and that's a good segue into the Giants, the Hard Knocks, and unfortunately, a couple of injuries there. Malik Neighbors already tweaked his ankle. Now they're claiming
Yeah.
he's okay. I hate to, when they say that, that's always scary. And then their fifth rounder, Tracy, today at practice went down. Said that they took him off in the infamous air cast, which is never good news. Actually, and that news may already be out, so I apologize to Giant fans. I have not gotten the latest on him. He looked like he was out of Purdue. He was their fifth rounder, and the reason I know more about him is because I watched the Hard Knocks with the Giants and
Yeah.
Joe Shane. And I just thought it was really interesting how they work. It's amazing that they gave him that much access. John Mara kind of made himself look a little foolish because he's definitely not in charge, I guess. There's no doubt that Shane was in charge because Saquon Barkley's situation, it was pretty obvious that he had no interest in retaining him. And when he said the infamous, "I'm not going to have a $40 million quarterback hand the ball off to a $15 million running back." So Joe Shane knows he's got another year because obviously with Jones was not his guy. Dayball, I mean, he definitely worked hard in this series, John, to kind of give himself like a different persona. And even though they did joke numerous times about his temper, and he even joked about it himself, he definitely looked a lot better. So if I'm a Giant fan, I'm happy to see that because I thought, as we mentioned many times, that he was completely out of control last year, and his team's play reflected it, and they had a terrible year.
Yeah. And by the way, an update on I'm sorry, I forgot his name already. Tracy.
Okay, what's it say?
Low ankle sprain.
Low ankle sprain.
No,
That's
nothing
good
really
news.
bad. Yeah,
All
it's
right,
very
that's
good
good news.
news.
There you
Very
go,
good
John.
news.
So for all the Giant fans who are watching, and we do appreciate people, right? YouTube.com/Bouk and Zoobie. Search our show, Bouk and Zoobie. Please subscribe, like the episodes. Same thing with Spotify.com. Please subscribe and just favorite the episodes. And of course, our good friends who are still with us at the world famous LIR.com, 92.7 LIR.com, right, John? I've been
You
working on
got
that.
it. Hey, you're good at it this
So
week.
really appreciate the radio station still out there. I was actually listening last week. Malibu Sue is still out there spinning the tunes. Good to see that's still happening. I appreciate our friend Chris sponsoring the Bouk and Zoobie show through the YouTube world, which is great for us. We're having some fun with that, but we know people listen on Spotify, and I can get it, the way we look, John. Did we look a lot older in the last couple of weeks or months, whatever it was?
Hey, this is what happens when you turn 60. I was like, when we went on hiatus, I had just turned 60. And I said to myself, where did the years go? Where did the years go?
Where did the years go? Exactly. So every Jet
But,
fan says the same thing every year. Every Nick fan says the same thing. Every Ranger fan, for the most part, says the same thing. I guess quickly, let's go around the other sports, and then we'll get to the current sport that's active, and we'll even maybe throw some Olympics in there. Rangers, Sam Rosen announced, John, that it's going to be his last season next year coming up. And for even people like us, pretty much Sam Rosen has done the Ranger games for our adult lives. So it's, yeah, a lot of people were mixed on Sam in general, like kind of tying it to maybe their lack of success to poor Sam. But I always like Sam Rosen. I mean, I think he does a good job. And the one thing I think a lot of people, because he wasn't like, he hated when the NHL had a lot of fighting. So I think guys who are old time hockey fans didn't like Sam because he wasn't a guy who was into the hockey fights. So yeah, him and probably Joe Micheletti could be his last year too. Joe's been around forever too. God knows who's going to get those jobs, but yeah, just wanted to mention that. And you know,
40
again, the rain.
years.
What
40 years.
is 40, right? So
It'll be 40 for Rosen this year.
right. I'm just trying to think who, because it goes so far back, right? So who did the games? I should know that, but I remember Phil Esposito used to do the color commentary. So who did the Ranger games? We'll
Well,
have to,
well, Marv Albert.
on TV though, I don't know. He definitely did them on radio, right? So we'd have to go
Mm,
back. Marv mostly did radio, believe it or not.
yeah, yeah.
So I'm thinking of like the Knicks. Jim Carvelis. I remember him, right? Some of the guys from the old days doing the games. But yeah, I would have to. We actually ask your brother-in-law Steve. I'm sure he can off the top of his head would come up with that one. We'll do a real research. Yeah, so we're definitely not going to get into hockey at all, but I did want to mention
Yeah, I mean, listen, the Rangers I thought had a very good year, and the best team obviously won. I mean, that's the bottom line. The best team won the championship. That's it. I mean, they have nothing to be ashamed of. As much as we wanted to will them to win, they had a very good year. They had a very good
that.
year.
Of course, yeah, they did, and they're going to run it back. I don't think they've done enough. It's way too early to talk about it because hockey is really influenced by the trading deadlines as well. Just
Yeah.
a lot of the sports now are kind of, it's like, what are you doing up to trade deadlines besides football, of course, and then after the trade deadline. So yeah, so let's talk. I guess on the Knicks side, Jalen Brunson decided to do a favor for the organization. They unfortunately lost one of our favorites, Isaiah Hartenstein. So what's your view on the Knicks off season?
Well, we traded an awful lot to get Bridges, who's, an excellent player, excellent defender. I think you're going to see a lot of improvement from Sims. They're going to use Sims a lot. You know Sims better than I do, but I only really know him as a Nick, and the limited time that he's played. I mean, the kid can jump up to the sky. I mean, he
Super
has a
athletic.
potential to be an excellent rebounder. I think he needs more help defensively and offensively, and they have had people working with him that supposedly they say he's turned the corner. I don't know, but I mean they did a very smart move signing Precious Achua. I was very happy to see that. He actually took a discount. I mean he only signed for what, 6 million.
Yeah, no, that's a
Uh,
good deal for them. Yep.
and, the deal with Randall has been very, very quiet because he can sign an extension with the Knicks.
He's
So
not done. There's
do
no way
do
they're.
do you sign him or do you let him try to trade him, let him go? It's
I
a
don't know
tough
how they
call.
sign him. I don't, because Bridges is the future. I don't know the contractual situation with Bridges. That's a huge factor. Obviously, Anunoby they gave a huge deal to. Robinson
Yes,
has a
they
big deal. Like I said, Brunson saved them. They're going with the Villanova crew. I think. I think Randall's the odd man out. But can they move him is another story. I mean, how many? Do you know how many years he has left?
No, Randall's one more year after
One
this.
more. Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
you know something? I'm keeping him, and I'm trying to win a championship. I'm not getting rid of him, right?
I say that they should keep him. I would love to see him play better defensively. That's been a big problem with him. I mean, offensively, sometimes he's virtually unstoppable, but he gets a little lazy on defense, which doesn't listen. If Thibodeau likes him, that's okay. He likes him.
Well, he got an
He'll.
extension as well, right? We should mention that.
Oh yeah, and well worth it, man. I mean, who else could get a team like that with so many injuries and get 50 wins and get to the semifinals? It was a miracle. It was a
Well,
miracle that they got that far
yeah.
with so many injuries, so many.
Well, I'll tell you, you're feeling good. I mean, it's before you know it too. That's what's so funny about the winter sports because
They,
they're not there. We call them the winter sports, but in reality, they're every season with these teams. You know, between the NBA and the NHL, they're playing 3 out of 4 seasons now. So,
the Knicks started in October,
right, right.
and I just, since we're on the subject of basketball, so I ended up renewing my St. John's season tickets. Same seats, excellent seats. More games at SJU this year, less games at the Garden. Interesting, very interesting.
Well, he wants to make that a big home court advantage because he knows that the Garden, especially when they play UConn, John, as we know, is 50-50, right? And
Yeah.
that's not good enough. I get what he's doing, but you're the one you bashed Carnesecca Arena last year, so
Oh, it's
uh,
awful.
right.
It's absolutely awful. But according to the people at SG, I really should take a visit over there to see what they're doing. But supposedly they have made improvements in their seating, that they've been replacing seating. And I asked them which sections. They said your section and comparable sections on the other. I said, okay, we'll see. Absolutely awful. If you're above 5'8", you're very, very uncomfortable in those seats there. If you're 5'2", 5'3", 5'4", you're okay. Anything above 5'8", your knees are hitting someone's head, hitting the back. There's no way to move. There's no way
Awesome.
to move.
So imagine like the players' families having to sit in the seats, and let's face it, families of basketball players are usually taller than the average person.
Uh,
So that's not a good recruiting situation. But we have to mention it, John, and this is just between you and me, but we talked about it, and I think you saw it, right? In the Bahamas, November 21st,
yes.
St. John's Baylor in the Bahamas, John. Oh, I cannot wait for that battle. And I know people on Bouk and Zoobie are like, what? And, I have that connection with Baylor. They look loaded. St. John's looks really good. John, that's going to be an early season game to watch.
Yeah. Is it worth a trip to the Bahamas to go see them? I've never been to
Wow.
the Bahamas.
No. Oh, I think I had mentioned this last year as I am going down to Waco this year. So I will be going to a game, hopefully, because the new arena, which they opened last year, which we made fun of with the worst camera angle in the history of
Oh,
college sports.
oh.
Hopefully they have fixed that. So yeah, I'm going to be going down depending on the schedule. It hasn't come out yet. So college hoops we'll be talking. We'll even get into some college football because I know New York doesn't have that tie, but we'll talk a little bit about it. It will be not a lot, but we'll talk about it. I love it. But as always, it's about the locals on the Bouk and Zoobie show, right? And what do you think? I don't know if we're ready to go to the other sports that are playing. I know you got some more stuff for you, so I'll open it up to you, John. What do you got?
Um, Again, other than what's been going on in the NBA,
A little
it was
Olympics? How about Olympics? You said you didn't
Olympic.
watch, and you
I
watched
did
the gold
not
medal game.
watch. I did not watch not 1 minute of the Olympics, including the basketball games, which I'm going to actually look at on YouTube, especially the one against, I think it was Serbia, that they were down by 17 and they came back. Was it
I
Serbia or
Yeah, no, it was Serbia. I did miss that game. That was the semifinal game, and I missed that one. I did see the final game against France, and Wemby is that guy is John. Like I said, a year too early last year with my prediction with the Spurs. Watch out. This guy is unbelievable, John. He's a scratch of the surface. He's a freak of nature.
When I saw it when he was playing the Knicks that one game, and he was shooting threes like it was nothing. I mean,
It's too
what can't he do? What can't he do?
it's too bad you didn't watch because there was a player on the French team, and I can't even tell you his name. He power forward type of guy, plays in Spain. Really good player. He dunked on LeBron. Just you wouldn't think when you looked at him that he would be that good. He's like a big Charles Barkley type of guy. A really good player. I'm like, how is this guy not in the NBA? It's beyond
Hmm.
belief. He's been playing for Real Madrid. Very good player. Sorry, I don't know his name. But John, Steph Curry put this show on. I don't know. Did you see the highlights at least? Because he hit, I think it was 5 3-pointers down the stretch. One, the last one he hit, John, that put it away was just like he was guarded, and he basically almost just like threw it up and it went in. It was just one of these things that was incredible. So he has really stamped himself as definitely the best long range shooter in the history of the game. I know it's recent history because obviously back in the day, the 3-point shot wasn't even around, right, in the
Yeah.
Oscar
Yeah.
Robertson, Jerry West era. So it's hard to say. But in this era, there's nothing like him, John. There's nothing like him. He is phenomenal.
And to think that the Knicks were one pick away from selecting him, and I forgot who they took after him. It was another waste of a first round pick.
Oh yeah, wasn't it the guy Hill, right? What was the kid's name?
Oh yeah,
Hill,
that's right.
Jordan Hill.
Yeah. Oh my
Wow,
God. That
Hall of
was a
Famer versus not a Hall of Famer. Will be nice. So yeah, so I actually watch a good amount of the Olympics. I was traveling, so it's easy to watch the Olympics. The melodramatics and the overkill of the stories, but I really enjoyed. I mean, I do like the swimming, and the track and field was good. The Americans actually did really well.
yeah,
They
they did.
did well in some track and field events that they hadn't been doing as well. I'll tell you the woman's what's her name's it's not Richardson. It's oh my God, I can't remember her name. What she ran the hurdles, and then she ran in like the four. I think she did the 400-meter hurdles, and then she did the relay without hurdles, and she runs almost just as fast, John. They timed her with the hurdles and without, and it's hardly any difference. That's how
Wow.
phenomenal she is. And of course,
Wow.
I can't think of
Wow.
her name. So
Wow.
this is what happens when you are busy and you kind of have to write these names down. But because I'm thinking of the girl Richardson, who was more of the sprinter. I think she got the silver in the 100. And of course, Noah Lyles won the 100 and then ran with COVID in the 200 and got the bronze medal. So there was some good stuff, and of course, the swimming. I actually like it, and things even like crazy stuff like table tennis. I'm telling you, John, it's really fun to watch, and a big volleyball guy too. And the men got knocked out, and the women got the silver. So
You mean we have competition when we play ping pong?
the Americans were nowhere to be found in table tennis. Nowhere. The
Yeah.
Swedes did well. It was obviously the Asian countries
Yeah, yeah.
and Sweden, and but it's just how good they are. It's crazy. It really
Oh,
is.
I meant when you and I used to play,
Oh,
not the USA.
oh, when you and I used to play. Okay,
Yeah.
there you go. In the basement, exactly.
In
When
the
the ball used to
basement.
get stuck in the rafters sometimes. When
Yeah, you couldn't slam it. You used to slam it, and you have to go looking for it in the ceiling somewhere.
all right. That's we're definitely not Olympic. There's no way we were making the Olympics. I'll tell you that much. Anyway, so what else did we? I mean, we like I said, we're not going to talk about non-sports because it's just there's so much stuff has happened. We don't want to go there.
Yeah.
We've talked about everything else, John. So as we're back, and we hope people can come back and start enjoying the content. We'll be talking a lot of NFL. But right now, I know people have been waiting because in the crazy circumstances of two big Met fans, could we completely lay them to rest, refuse to talk about them? We said that we're not going to waste everybody's time and talking about the New York Mets. And since that time, which is about 2 months, the New York Metropolitans, despite this last weekend, are back in. So it's time for baseball with Bouk.
Thanks, Paul. So, yes, we basically were putting the Mets out to pasture. And I did say before we left that the lineup, he had reconfigured the lineup, and I said, I like this lineup. I like this lineup.
Yes, they did win a few before we went on hiatus. They actually had won a few. Were looking better. That is true.
Yes. The Mets really, I kind of did some type of statistical analysis. The Mets really need to win 25 out of the next 44 games, I think, to get into the playoffs. They need to win 86. As I said in the beginning of the year, I thought 86 wins they would have. They absolutely need to get 86 wins to get in the playoffs because Arizona and the Padres, I have to say, when you look at the rosters, the Mets match up to all of they have a real shot because the Dodgers have had a lot of injuries. The Phillies are hot and cold. They're hot and cold. I mean, they made some great moves at the trade deadline, but outside of the other teams, the wild card is so close in the National League. It's ridiculous. I mean, how many teams are in? Even the Cubs out of nowhere are 4 games out, and they're awful. They're absolutely an awful team. So the one thing is that the Mets really have to beat, we'll say, the easier teams. I think people are going to be very dismissive of the Mets playing the A's. They're playing them for the next 3 games, and the Marlins. The A's are not a bad team, actually. The record is not the greatest, but they actually have good pitching. The Marlins basically got rid of half of their team, and the Yankees certainly took advantage of the Marlins. I mean, they got Jazz Chisholm for practically nothing. I couldn't believe that trade. He's going to be with them for many, many years. Great trade for them. But let's go back to the Mets, and then I'll get to the Yankees. So they need Jeff. It's nice to see Jeff McNeil finally hitting. Finally, he's almost up to 240. He's showing power. He looks like the old Jeff McNeil. Great. Nimmo has done practically nothing since the All-Star break. He only has 3 RBIs since the All-Star break. Pretty bad. But the worst, and we called it, and we really were hoping he wasn't going to, is Pete Alonso. Pete Alonso, actually, Nimmo and Lindor have more RBIs than Pete Alonso does. Even J.D. Martinez is not far behind Pete Alonso, and he has like 150 less at-bats than him. The problem with Pete Alonso this year is he has been awful with runners in scoring position. Absolutely awful. So I'm going to give you some statistics just to let our fans know how bad Pete has been this year. And by the way, Pete Alonso, once in a while it would be refreshing that you don't think so highly of yourself, that you're having a great year. Because someone asked him, how do you feel about you having a down year? And he goes, what do you mean a down year? I'm on a 40 home run pace, and I was an all-star. That was his answer. I was like, okay, Pete, we're going to bring it down to earth on the Bouk and Zoobie show. Runners in scoring position this year. He bats 205. It was before he had the home run last week. He was down to 198 with runners in scoring position. He's at 205. He's number 1 in men left on base in the National League. 219 runners left on base with Pete Alonso. He's hit into 13 double plays. With runners in scoring position, he has 46 left on base. 46. 14 of his 25 home runs have been with the bases empty. And with the bases loaded, he's batting 111 with 4 runs batted in. These are pretty awful. And he bats 097 when the game is on the line in the late innings. 097. So I like Pete. I think he plays hard. He tries his best, but you and I saw it coming. He keeps thinking about that contract. He should have accepted the offer that the Mets had. He is not going to see that money now. If any team thinks that they're going to pay him more than what the Mets offered him, it's going to be a bad contract for them. The Mets gave him a very good offer, 7 years, $157 million, and he said no. And Mr. Boras has not shown that he's been doing a good job last year or the years before that, where a lot of his clients decline. Michael Conforto is one of them. You think about Michael, he had a 5-year, $100 million contract. He turned down the Mets. What happens? He gets hurt. He gets 2 years, $36 million. No one's going to give him $18 million after the year he's had. You look at Snell. The Yankees gave him 6 years, $150 million. He turned it down. He's having a bad year this year.
Despite lately, he's turned it on. Yeah, right.
He's turned it on lately, but all these guys that are on the 1-year contracts, really not doing well. Not doing well.
Well, John,
Boras has over-negotiated here.
Well, I got to jump in here with a live update of when you said that the A's are a good team. What was the exact thing you said? I think you said that they were a good team, right?
They're a decent team with good pitching. What happened?
7-1 A's.
Oh, yeah. You know why? Blackburn is facing his old team. Yep. The A's are not a bad team. They really aren't. If you look at their pitching staff, they're not a bad team. Not a bad team. People are underestimating them.
Well, I'll tell you, it's so funny to look at their lineup. It's absolutely hysterical. If you could name 3 of these guys, I would be impressed. But there is the ex-Yankee. I won't put you on the spot because that's unfair. Andujar is actually on the A's.
Yeah, yes, he is.
He's batting 4th.
Yes, he is. Yep.
So, and I actually know this kid because he went to Baylor. Shane Langoliers. He's the catcher. He hit a 3-run homer. So, anyway, so the Mets are losing to Oakland, like you said, after this long road trip and a horrific weekend series against the Mariners where they basically didn't score. And I think everybody was giving them like, okay, that was a kind of a brutal trip, right? And they're just beat, and that's it. To come out game 1 and lay an egg, that's not good news. This is like you said, this is huge. They got Oakland and the Marlins on this trip. On this homestand, and then they go out on another trip, right? There's another long.
Yeah, they have 9. They're going to have 9 games at Citi Field, and then they're going to go back out west.
Right.
Terrible.
This balanced schedule is
terrible scheduling. Terrible. But this is August will determine if they're going to stay in this playoff race because the Braves have so many injuries. You talk about it, and actually every single one of their players is not performing up to what they normally do. The Mets have an opportunity here. They really do have an opportunity to get rid of the Braves. They're 1 game behind them. They got to start making up. I was upset that they lost 2 out of 3 to the Angels. They really should have taken care of that. But like you said, the Mariners made them look like garbage. They looked awful that whole weekend. Awful.
Well, is this the Mets are in a weird spot because before we left, we were like, okay, they're going to trade Alonso, they're going to try to trade McNeil if anybody's worthy, wants to actually have him. This is the strategy that the team was going to employ. Then, of course, they make this huge run where they can't sell. The fan base would erupt, but they hang in there, and now you're like, if they don't make it, they have to make it, John, because if they don't make it, where are they? Because Pete is, is they going to sign him? I just don't see it. So they're in a weird spot because at the beginning of the year, this was about the youth movement.
Yep.
And as we sit right now, if you're looking, there is definitely some youth movement still in there. But they got some veteran guys as well, right? JD Martinez is not a young guy, right? So, where are they going to be? Because, he's
And
obviously
Marte's been out.
right. Well, we talked about their outfield just not being good enough, and then Nimmo goes out and he's like an unbelievable, even though somehow he didn't make the All-Star game. He had a great first half. Bader played, I thought, better than you would expect, but he's still, in my opinion, a fourth outfielder. He's a really good fourth. I don't think he's a starter, but you're right. We were right. Marte hasn't played. Nimmo is unbelievable. Then now he is slumped. Vientos came out of nowhere. He really bailed them out. Lindor's been great. He's really been the one guy. And then, and the Iglesias story is incredible. We have to mention him, even though he obviously has cooled off a little bit. And then Alvarez has got to get it going, right, John? What's going on with him?
Yeah, he to me, I think his biggest problem is he looks like he's trying to pull everything. When he should go out to all the fields. He just needs to go with the pitch. If he starts doing that, I think he'll be fine. But he's lacking a little power there. I think he has 5 home runs.
And he's trying to hit him. That's the problem.
That's
the problem. Yes. Don't worry about being a power hitter. They got power. They have enough power, I think. I mean,
they do. They do. I was really hoping, even though they were doing well, I still thought they should have traded Quintana because they're not going to re-sign him. They should have. There was such a market for anyone that was breathing, anyone, and some of these prospects that teams were giving up for mediocre pitchers was amazing. They should have traded Quintana because they had the backup. I mean, Severino looks like he's running out of gas. It looks like he could pitch well for 5 innings, and that's it. He's running out of gas now, it looks like.
Well, what's his name? Manaea. Sean Manaea has been tremendous, right? I know he got kind of bombed the last start, right? But he's been really good. So they've overachieved in certain areas. Starting pitching, to me, absolutely is one. You're right about Sevy. I mean, he definitely has pitched well for the, what they brought him in for, a 1-year deal. But now they got to re-sign him. They've got some guys in the minors. Unfortunately, Scott got hurt. That kind of stinks because I thought he had ability. And the bullpen is the same thing. But the one thing we have to talk about, John, because I had sent you a text. I go, John, tell me when the Mets are at 30 pitchers. And then you actually came back and you said that they were already over 30.
That's correct.
So do we know what the latest count is? Is it still?
It depends on who they're bringing up. I mean, believe it or not, I actually think that the Mets are going to actually bring this guy Vinny Natoli back to the major leagues because that guy has been all over the major leagues. They signed him to a minor league contract, and he has to be on the roster by August 29th. So I think you're going to see Vinny Natoli on the Mets. And listen, Ben Gamel's days are up.
How did he get back on the team? What happened? I thought they got rid of him.
I thought he was done when the Pirates got rid of him. I don't know how he's still in the major leagues. Anyway, when Marte comes back, he's gone.
I wanted to say about this pitching because when we talk baseball, at the in the off season, when we're talking about how much the pitchers and how many pitchers you need. Oh, you need 5 or 6 good starters. The Mets are proving. Can you imagine you're supposed to have depth of 30 pitchers? 30? Folks, this is, to me, one of the funniest statistics. I'd love to know what each team in the major leagues number is. 30 pitchers and the season still has almost 2 months to go.
And
It's
you know what the fun?
incredible. What is that? It's impossible to have that many pitchers in your organization. How could this happen? It's crazy.
Well, when you have these guys that you sign for 10 days to make one start. I mean, just think about this. We had Julio Teheran actually start a game for us, and then they released him after he got bombed after 4 innings. So, I mean, even this is a strange thing. I've never seen a player actually do this where he was lobbying to actually keep his spot on the team. Was Adam Ottavino. I don't know if you saw it. Did you see that in the paper? That he was actually saying to management, don't let me go.
Yeah,
Right. I was like, really?
I mean, the only thing you could say about the guy, he's been there all year. He stinks, but at least he's been available. I mean, everybody has. What pitchers have pitched? Manaea has.
Yeah.
Severino, did he miss a little time?
No.
Yeah, he's pretty much taking the ball every fifth, right? So to me, that was a shock. Quintana's actually been almost.
Yeah, he's been good. Yeah,
right?
He's been good. Yeah.
The unfortunate situation with
Peterson.
Senga.
Peterson came back.
Well, he came back, but I'm just talking about who started the season.
Yeah,
and
that's the 3.
Pitching, and it's incredible.
It's the older guys.
Right, but the depth that you need as an organization in the modern game. This is about the modern game, and the Mets living in this philosophy of 5 or 6 innings is good enough for a starting pitcher. This is a Mets problem. That's why I want to know what the other teams are like. I want to know what the other teams' numbers are. I don't know how easy that is to find out.
I'll find it. I'll find out.
I would love to know what it is like. Does any, or if you could do it this way, is anybody have more pitchers on their roster this year than the Mets? That's all
I think the Mets are number 1, and I think the Red Sox are number 2. But
I have to see. Is there a team with like less than 15? That would be pretty impressive because most teams are carrying 13 or 12.
Yeah.
So if any, I mean, maybe we're going to find out like every team in the major leagues is in like 25 to 35. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy. Anyway.
So
what else you got?
Well, you talk about injuries. The Mets might have dodged another bullet here. I mean, first it was Trevor Bauer. Now Yamamoto has not pitched since mid-June for the Dodgers. I mean, big contract. And people were wondering how this he's a small guy, throwing that hard.
Right, never pitched in the majors. Never pitched in the major leagues, though. That's a huge factor. Right?
Yeah.
You're going to give $200 million to a guy who's never pitched in the major leagues? Okay, that's a bit of a risk, John. And the Mets got lucky. They didn't get him.
They got lucky. Let's talk about the Yankees. So the Yankees
get to the Yankees.
Were on a hot streak and went in the exact opposite direction of the Mets for a while. I mean, Cole was out. Cole has pitched very well coming back. They're going to get Clark Schmidt back in 2 weeks. Stroman did well in the beginning and got absolutely bombed the next 6 or 7 starts. Bombed. He actually pitched well the other day. I still think the Yankees will go. I really think that the biggest competition will be the Orioles. I think they're going to get over the Astros hump because the Astros have so many injuries with their starting staff. And guess what? Justin Verlander did the Mets a huge favor by, I shouldn't say he did a favor. He was injured. He's not going to hit 140 innings. And the Mets won't have to give the Astros $17.5 million.
Yeah, Stevie Cohen is happy. That's
he's really happy.
I don't think there's any ticket refund coming for that saving. So hopefully that turns into some sort of free agent in the offseason. But yeah, so I'm just taking a quick glimpse. of the standings. And yeah, you didn't mention the Guardians, right? Obviously having
Yeah,
a great year, the old Guardians, huh?
yeah, they are. They are. But I think the underdog here are the Mariners because the Mariners have excellent pitching. Their problem was offense, which I never understood why they didn't keep Teoscar Hernandez. The guy did phenomenally for them. I don't understand why they didn't keep him when he was a free agent. They should have signed him. But uh, they end up getting Justin Turner, who looks like he's at the end of his career. He's not really doing much at all this year, Justin Turner. Uh, but their pitching is really, really underrated. I mean, they have excellent starting pitching. They just don't have hitting. So I wouldn't rule out the Mariners in a
Well, I'm looking at it right now. Yeah, they're
short
pretty.
series.
Yeah, they're in it right now. If the season ended today, they will be. It's what, 7 teams now. It's horrible. Is it 7? We're up to 7 now in each national,
Is it
or is it
7?
6? Or is it 6? I forget. Maybe it's 6.
It's
It's 6.
6. It's
It's 6.
6. 6.
So right now they would make it. They would be the last team in. It looks like. Actually, it looks like the Royals would be the last team in. I
Yeah.
apologize. The Mariners are not in. So the Royals, with Bobby Witt, is having like a pretty good year, I guess, huh? Maybe he's going to break
What?
the 480. Maybe he'll hit 480.
Hey, listen, Seth Lugo,
Oh,
who
please.
always wanted to start
No.
with the Mets. He used to say, "I'm a starter," and they were having him as a mop-up guy.
Setup guy,
They
too.
tried him as closer, and he finally got his chance with the Padres, and now the Royals. Pitching very, very well. The Mets really made a big. I didn't like when they lost Seth Lugo. They just would never let him start. They would never let the man start.
It's a shame.
Yeah, yeah,
Anyway, well, I'm glad to see the Mets are back in it. We left them for dead. They're back in it. We're mid-August. They have meaningful games to play. The way the baseball's set up, I hate the balanced schedule. Having the Mets play Oakland, they're out in Seattle. I mean, it's just. I'm sorry, I dislike it. I think baseball's got a huge problem keeping interest. Football's gearing up, John, and baseball, man, I'll tell you, it becomes a very regional sport when it's only about the teams that are left, because I just don't think it has the broad appeal anymore.
yeah. And one thing that I want to mention before uh, we end the show is while we were away, we had 2 deaths in Major League Baseball: Orlando Cepeda and Willie Mays.
Of course. Well, all right. That was a pretty big one.
Willie Mays. Did you ever really, other than with the Mets, did you ever watch Willie Mays play at all? Did you remember, other than the Mets?
No, definitely. So what? So he got there in 73. Did he play 73, 74, or is it 72, 73, or is what?
72, 73.
Okay, 72, 73. I definitely remember Willie Mays with the Mets. Definitely not. The Mets in 73, John, is a sport. I remember that. I remember some Super Bowls before that. I think it was like Dallas, Miami. I think it was like Super Bowl 6. I kind of remember that as a kid. But I don't claim to remember things when I'm 5 years old at my age of 60. But yeah, I think 8 years old, you can get away with saying you were a fan. I'll give you that. Anything under 8, I think people are reaching it. Like the joke was with like Mike Francesa used to always be like he was a fan like when he was like 2 years old or something, and they counted that or something.
Well,
right. Oh, I've been
I
a
always
fan for 50 years. You're 52. Oh, you've been a fan for 50 years. Give me a break. That doesn't count if your father and your mom threw you in front of the TV when you were crawling. That does not count. Anyway.
Well, I always remember in 73, I officially call it the year that my mother started following Major League Baseball again. She used to be a Brooklyn Dodger fan. And I really started following the Mets when really 1971, 72. But 73 was a year that I really, really started following them. And, we were 9 years old at the time. No, 8 years old. 8 years old. No, 9 years old.
Well, it depends. Yeah, 9.
Yeah,
Depends
8, 9,
when your
whatever.
birthday was. Whatever.
My mother, because I couldn't stay up for the games, used to watch the games, and then on my bedroom door used to have like a synopsis of the game. Rusty Staub hit a home run. Willie Mays caught. It give me the score and how they won. And I
Awesome.
remember one time I think it was in 1974, where they had that 24 inning game, and the way the Mets lost that game is they tried to pick a guy off at first, and the guy came all the way around to score the run. My mother stayed up until 4:30 in the morning
Wasn't it
watching
like
that game.
1-0 or 2-1 too? That game or
Yeah,
something.
I remember it was Hank Webb was the one that tried to pick off the guy. I'll never forget it. But that 73 season, I officially call it the year that my mother got back into Major League Baseball after because she was a Brooklyn Dodger fan. Imagine you grow up in Manhattan where everyone's a Yankee or Giant fan, and she liked the Dodgers. She was the only one in the entire family that liked the Dodgers. So she didn't follow them from 1956 until 73. And that was officially the year that she came back. And she did something special for me. I'm going to bring it back to Willie Mays. So she used to be in public relations when she used to work in Manhattan. She had a real knack for that. That's how I learned from her. And she actually wrote a letter and called up the Mets that it was going to be my birthday and could they send some pictures. And so I got signed pictures from Buddy Harrelson, John Matlack, and my biggest one was from Willie Mays. I have
There
a
you go.
signed, he said, "Happy birthday, John." They put a big smiley face, Willie Mays.
Well, that's a keeper, man. That's your big one.
That and Sandy Koufax's autograph when I wrote my research paper on him in high school. And I got a letter back from Sandy Koufax. So I have two. I have Sandy Koufax and Willie Mays.
Wow, that's pretty good, John. That's a good way to end the show. So we're so happy to be back. I hope everybody is going to stick with us throughout the football season for the drive to the Super Bowl for the green team. And if the blue team wants to come along as well, we'll bring them along as well. We'll be happy to talk about the Giants and, of course, the NFL because, John, that's where sports lives, and we're just looking forward to it. So who do you got to thank?
Again, as always, thank you to our producer, Zach Zubulake, and to our loyal listeners. Keep the feedback coming. Keep listening. We love hearing from you. Also, thanks to our community partners, Ronald McDonald House, Kids in Seats, and the Jackie Robinson Foundation. See you next week.